pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. There is a slight change in the agenda. We need to go into executive session for the purposes of discussing the Julian Quarry pursuant to 1 VSA subsection 313 1F, and we have somebody who has a scheduling conflict that can't wait till the end of the meeting, so that's what we're going to do at this point. So I am going to, if I can find it.
Shall I?
I'm going to enter an executive session for the purpose of confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body under 1 VSA subsection 313 1F, and there are two motions required for this. And I will move to find that premature public knowledge, general public knowledge of confidential attorney-client communications for the purpose of providing professional legal services relative to potential enforcement of possible violations at Julian Quarry would place the town of Chester at a substantial disadvantage. So I hear a motion.
So moved.
So
Second.
Tim, Arnie is the motion and Tim is the second. Any questions, discussions? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Second motion is to enter into executive session for the purpose of communicating with town council regarding potential enforcement of possible violations at Julian Quarry pursuant to 1 VSA subsection 313 1F. Motion to include inviting in town manager Julie Hantz and Preston Bristow.
So moved.
So Ariana is the motion and Tim is the second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We are now in executive session. You folks, if I appreciate your patience, wait here. We will move downstairs. We'll be back in a few minutes.
And we have document to share.
so much, Evan. Thank you.
So I'll entertain a motion to exit executive session.
Move
And if I
to-
could ask for order in the room, I'd appreciate it.
Social
If you could
hours.
find your seat. Thank you.
Move to exit executive session.
So Tim's the motion,
Second?
Ariana's the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, nay. Thank you. So no action taken as part of that executive session. Next on our agenda is approval of the minutes from the Select Board meeting dated April 16th, 2025.
So moved.
So moved to approve.
Second it, don't you?
What are you moving? Approval of the minutes?
Approval of the minutes, right?
Second.
Okay, so Peter has made the motion to approve the meeting minutes, and Ariana's made the second. Any discussion, corrections, concerns?
I have none.
I don't think I have
I'm all
any
set,
either.
thank you.
Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. Next is citizens' comments. If anyone has any comments to make on anything that is not part of the agenda, you're welcome to come up, use the microphone, identify yourself, and keep your comments short if you would. There's a lot of people in the room.
That'll take me about 2 minutes. Is that
Thank
okay?
you. That's perfect.
Can you hear me?
No.
That's only for Zoom. I don't believe it's amplifying, is it?
No, it's not. Here, for citizens' comments, you guys can use this. Use this one. You're welcome.
I get a little nervous in front of you guys, but here we go. Good evening. Thank you for allowing me to speak about my concerns on the green. My name is Sharon Baker. I own Sharon's on the Common, Chester Candy, the Maple Room, and I run an outside market in the alley just off the green, which is known as Artisans Alley Pop-Up Market. It is a place for vendors to test the waters for their products that they make, create, and grow. It is a free venue, and this year we have moved it to Saturdays from 11 a.m. to 4 p.m., beginning May 24th. I am here as a business owner who has been impacted by the events that have taken place on the green over the past 37 days. On April 5th, there was a planned protest for the green from 10 to 12. I only found out about it because I happened to see it on a Facebook page from another town. No one came to tell any of us as business owners what was being planned. We were basically invaded for several hours by approximately 500 people supporting this effort. This was apparently co-sponsored by a national organization but run by a local group. For the most part, it was peaceful, but the parking lot on the green was taken by the protesters, leaving only 1 or 2 spaces for customers. It was so loud that even though I am in the back at the bottom of the alley, several hundred feet away, with my door closed, I could hear the yelling and screaming. Not knowing what was actually going on, I chose to close my shops from 10:30 to 12:40 that day. I reopened after the green was cleared out, but the financial damage was done. The green remained almost empty for the rest of the business day. To give you an example, the candy shop usually does several $100s in business on a Saturday, most of it in the afternoon hours. I saw no one in the morning from 9:30 until I closed at 10:30. I saw one person later that day who spent $10. I have the paperwork to show the difference. I personally know of one family that had to drive through what has now been termed as the gauntlet on both sides of Route 11, and their children were terrorized by the yelling and chanting. Scaring kids is not cool. There was another incident with a local resident trying to leave her own driveway, who ended up driving on her lawn, and the hood of her car was pounded on. Several people reported that protesters were stepping out in front of traffic. My observation is not political. I am trying to remain as neutral as possible because in business, everyone is your customer regardless. I find kindness and courage go hand in hand. I do not have an issue with any American citizen exercising their right to speak out about what they believe. We are all protected by the First Amendment. I do have a problem with events that take away my right to work and earn a living. I have a problem when my employees have to be sent home due to no customers, meaning no business. They lose out on income to support themselves and their family. I have a problem when I have to wonder if I am going to be safe in my building, not knowing what is going on outside. Now we are faced with another protest planned for Saturday, June 14th. It is also graduation weekend. Families will be celebrating, relatives will be coming, in some instances from long distances. Even though this one is set for just 2 hours, it is right in the middle of the busiest day of the week and will again render the green as kryptonite for the day. Folks will find other places to go rather than here. And once again, we will be avoided like the plague. I will have to cancel Artisans Alley Market for that day, not knowing exactly what will be transpiring. More opportunities for small entrepreneurs will be lost to those whose rights appear to supersede others. At this point, I have been informed that my next-door neighbors at 90 Common Street, the old Free Range building, have been designated as the meeting place for this protest. Since at this time we are one of only 2 designated places for these protests to occur in the whole state, the second being in Burlington, I am inquiring about private security for that day. I do not feel safe and wish to protect myself and my tenants. I have several questions for the town. Who pays the liability insurance for these events? Who pays for the extra police details or even ambulance and fire if needed? Where do these people park? There is nothing regarding parking on their newest flyer. Who is providing restroom facilities for what could be well over 1,000 attendees? I'm almost done. We are a small, tight-knit, welcoming community of business owners who work so hard to survive. Even when we are not open, we are working our businesses, doing paperwork, replying to emails, etc. We have survived the pandemic. We have survived the flood of 2023. We have survived extremely high inflation. In some cases, we are back to needs versus wants when it comes to our retail businesses. People have had a very tough winter, and we are finally rounding the corner coming into what should be our busy season. Some of us are on our last little bit of hope to stay viable. Every single day counts. I tell everyone I am on the 8-day-a-week plan because that is what it takes to be here and be successful. These events are doing nothing but giving us a black eye. Please think about the long-range effects of continued protests on the Green, irregardless of which side each one is on. In the coming months, some people may not consider purchasing a home here and raising their family because of continued disruption. Some may not bring their business here because it could be a huge risk, not knowing if they will be able to be open on certain days. Customers will begin to question whether or not it is worth the drive when coming from a distance. Several have already been disappointed at not being able to access the Green to shop and enjoy a nice lunch. My understanding is that these events are being planned for the next several years. The Green, which has always been a beautiful place to sit, have a picnic, people watch, and just enjoy the beauty of our surroundings, could be lost if something is not done to help all of us. There has to be a better way for everyone. I have now asked what happened to Chester, not what happened in Chester. Lastly, my question to any protesters: why have we become such a target, and why are you trying to destroy what we have worked so hard to build in this beautiful village? I would ask that you please put this on your next meeting agenda, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon. Thank you, Sharon. Anyone else like to make a comment? Yes, come on up, state your name.
My name's Amber Ham. I own Songbird Wellness, 12 Common Street on the Green. I am not taking a side. This bothers me a lot to put my very first wedge into this community since I've been here. But the protest did wipe out our business that day. And the second one was fine. It was after hours for most of us. But I definitely could not see clients that morning. There was no parking. I feel like it was not organized very well. And I just think there could be a better space for it. There's only one area in Chester to have retail businesses, and we rely on people driving past, seeing our charming town, parking, getting a coffee at one of our cafes, and walking the shops. That's what we rely on. So I pretty much agree with all of what Sharon has experienced. And again, this is not a political stance for me. I've worked really hard since I've been here to build this business from the ground up by myself, paying for it myself, and I am protective of it. And that's all.
Thank you, Amber. Anyone else like to make a comment about this or any other? Yes.
My name's Amy McFeeters. I live on Grafton Street. And I just want to respond to Sharon and Amber. I find it very difficult to understand that businesses were completely wiped out for a protest that went on for 2 hours. Sharon, you chose to close your shop.
So actually, if you could address your comments to me as the chair of the board.
Sure.
Thank you.
Folks chose to close their shops versus a possible alternative, which would have been to open your shops and invite people in, show them what you have to offer. Use it as an opportunity to get your name out there, get your shop out there. As someone who was present at that protest and a resident of Chester, I didn't see anything that would even remotely insinuate violence or disruption, or certainly not anything that would make someone fear for their safety. I'd like to know exactly, maybe I'm wrong, maybe there were things other people saw that I didn't see, but I certainly didn't see where folks were being threatened or had concerns for their safety or felt that there needs to be lots of security. I saw a small town where everyone knows everybody, and a lot of other folks in the county came to this town and united for a belief that they wanted to express, that they can do legally in a public space in town. When folks either choose to purchase a business, rent a space, or place their business on the Green in Chester, they do that knowingly because it is the center of town. Chester is not a big place. You blink and you're going to miss the Green. It is the center of town. They do that knowingly that many times a year, festivals, gatherings, all kinds of things take place on the Green, and that's typically why they want their business there. They don't seem to complain during the fall festival. You know, are they complaining, during the other times where there's a musician out front and different kinds of things that happen throughout the summer, and when Southern Pie Cafe multiple times during the summer has somebody outside singing in a microphone like this with an amplifier? No, people enjoy it, and they gather. And the kids are yelling and screaming and playing, and people are walking through with their dogs. I think that this was a lost opportunity for business owners who chose to close their shop or feel that they were put out financially for something that could have been a very positive thing. Many of the people that I were with were excited to patronize the local businesses on the Green. And if you close your doors, well then, yes, of course, we're not going to go in because you're closed. I think that you put your business there, it's the center of town. You don't complain during any other festivals, and when you say you're not political about it, I have a really hard time believing that. Because, quote, the other protest wasn't a problem, the one that took place after, which was an opposite political party. And that one wasn't a problem, but this one was. That one was a quarter of the size of this one.
Thank you.
Okay.
I don't mean to cut you
No,
off.
that's
but-
fine, thank you.
So, thank you. Anyone else like to speak up?
You have some.
Frank Kelly on Zoom has his hand up.
Yep. Frank, I see you. Hold on a second. Mr. Bidgood, if you'd like to. Okay. Frank, go ahead.
Frank, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
Give me a second.
Thanks so much, everybody. Thank you. I am Frank Kelly. I am a resident of Chester, and I want to thank the town of Chester. Congratulations, everyone. You filled a dumpster. Woo, woo, woo. You greened up over 100 miles of roads in our town, dirt roads. I think there's 100 miles of them. I wanted to shout out thank yous to the Chester Conservation Committee, to the Chester Town Hall crew. Thank you, Amy, for organizing the dumpster, to the Chester Road crew for doing Route 35, which is basically a raceway of people flying down. And thank you to each and every person who picked up cans, bottles, and other things that fell out of people's cars during Green Up Day. It's not an easy task. It's not fun. But if you focus on the wildflowers and the other things that you see along the way and take a few friends with you, it really does make a difference. Lastly, I'd like to give two shout outs. One shout out to the Green Mountain Middle School team. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Those folks went out and did Green Mountain Turnpike and other sections of town, and the kids had a blast. And I wanted to thank the team and the staff for making that happen. And secondly, I'd like to put a shout out to all of the people. There are regional coordinators who take a section of town and they figure out who's going to do what. The list is long. I would not take the time to share it with you tonight. If anyone wants to know, I would be happy to share that with them. But each of those regional coordinators make a difference because they organize, they know the people that live down around the corner, and this guy's down around the bend, and that guy's over there. And those folks make a huge difference. And so thank you, one and all, to everyone in Chester for making that happen. I appreciate the Whiting Library people, Carrie King, way to go, Chester Telegraph and the Vermont Journal for getting it out there to people. Quick shout out to Erskine's. Love going there, and you can always pick up Green Up bags. Chester Hardware, I mentioned the library and the town hall. So thank you, everyone. It was a great Green Up Day. If anyone wants this position, I'd be happy to give it up. For little money, actually nothing. I have extra Green Up bags. I'll just give them to you. But it's great. It's a wonderful opportunity to see our community come together. And thank you.
And many thanks to you, Frank, for all your coordinating efforts. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Bidgood.
Oh, I think they were.
Paul Bidgood, to you, Chairman, to the board, good evening. I'm here again to speak.
Paul, use the microphone.
I'm here again to talk about Bailey Hill. Oh, I'm sorry.
There you go.
Okay. I'm here to talk about Bailey Hill Road. Just to give a quick recap of where we are on that. Last December of 24, we finally got the report from the town council Jim Carroll on the Bailey Hill Road, a matter that I brought to the board a year previously in December of 2023. And I appreciate the goodwill gesture that the former chairman shared that report, the opinion with me from Jim. Reading through that report, it was clear that Jim relied on a report that was done by Selectman Peter Hudkins. And in that report from Peter, there are several statements that just don't have any backup. And I'm left at a loss of how to understand both Jim's opinion and Peter's report. I put together a letter and I sent it to the board on February 5th of this year requesting the documentation that would substantiate what Peter had put together in his report. I didn't hear anything for several weeks, so I came to the mid-March meeting, and I requested a date certain on when I would get the response to my request. Here we are, May 7th. Now it's 90 days out from my February 5th letter, and still I don't have the information to make sense of the documentation that was given to me. Everything that I submitted, and I submitted a fair amount of documentation, everything was backed up. It would leave no reader confused of what I was saying and what I was basing my statements on. I'm here again tonight to again ask for a date certain. And before we get that, to establish a date certain, in the meeting minutes that you just approved from the last meeting, in there, if I read them right, I looked at them before I left the house today, there has been a public records request. And if you went to the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, they have a model policy on how to respond to citizens' requests for public information. And in that, it's 3 days, or promptly, and they define promptly as 3 days. Here we are, we're out 90 days, and in fact, this issue with the town, which I appreciate, I think it's going in good faith, and I don't want to get off on a bad course, but we have to get to a final resolution, and we're never going to get there if we can't trade the information that's needed. So again, following the Vermont League of Cities and Towns model policy, which I think most people would say is a fair understanding of what should be done, I'd like to set a date certain of when I'll get the information. And that is, again, 3 days. Here it is, Wednesday. You know, I'm willing to go into mid next week or so. I want to be reasonable about this. So that closes that part of the topic. Another thing is, while I was reading last week's meeting minutes, could you please provide me on who actually submitted the request for the public documents and what was that matter about? Could you inform me of that?
You want me to answer that?
Sure.
Public records request was submitted for police files, for police documentation regarding a speeding ticket, and the request was made by John and Daisy O'Keefe.
Okay, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Not to diminish a speeding ticket request, but my request goes to the heart of the previous woman here did a great job. She spoke of the First Amendment. My issue goes to the Fifth Amendment or 14th Amendment, either one, the taking of private property. It just can't continue, and I need to get the information so we can go to the next round of review. And then lastly, at the last meeting that I came to in mid-March, there was a statement made that the local snowmobile club was going to do some work on a road in the Smokeshare area. And I would formally request that the board, in writing, send whoever it needs to be sent to, the local snowmobile club, VAST, and whoever else. There should be no work done on the roads in the Smokeshare area. Those roads are under dispute. They're private property, a portion of them are private property, and I think in good faith, if we're going to continue on the good faith track, that letter should be sent out post haste before people start changing facts on the ground up there. Thank you. Do you have any questions for me?
Yeah, I do. So what's really taking me the most time is in the highway book, they say the road down to Calvin's. So this is 1837. So I have to go through, I'm going to still go through the Historical Society too, but I have to find Calvin. And if I get on the stand with you, which is where this headed, and you say, well, you assumed that it was this Calvin and you didn't look for any other Calvins, that's not going to stand. That is taking me forever because I have to go back and trace everything that's broken up. And Smoke Shear at that time in that neighborhood was like 15-acre lots. That's taking a really long time to find Calvin and to find all the Calvins. Now, you asked the question, I'm sorry it's taking this long, but it's, you know, from one first name in a road book, and you want to know where it is, it's going to take a lot of time.
What I'd suggest, if I could, I would like to meet and sit with Peter. And, you know, I have documentation, and I could show him where I'm not 100%, 99.9, if not 100% sure of where this particular issue, Calvin Morrison, lived. And it either is, you'd agree with me or not, but where you think he is, I totally disagree with. And I think this whole process could benefit if I sat with Peter and went through, I mean, it's his documentation that I have questions with. Nobody else can really help me but Peter himself. And I'm more than willing to come on a Saturday or during the week, whatever. My open hours to do this.
So, Mr. Bittergood, thank you for your comments. Our attorney will have to be spoken to give an opinion on whether Peter can meet with you, since he's recused himself from discussing this and as part of the board, as this may go to court. We'll have to get a legal opinion on that, but we appreciate your comments.
One thing that Peter could do, he could at least go through and answer the questions that he doesn't have an issue with. That would, you know, kind of break the logjam to some extent.
We'll take that under consideration.
And again, it's a 3-day type thing. I'm willing on even that lesser response to go into mid next week or so. And you're probably right. We probably shouldn't meet like that, but I'm kind of desperate. I want to move this along. It's my private property, and the defense of that is as strong as the First Amendment defense after these other people.
Thank you. Yes. Sorry, Marilyn, hold on.
Jerry Gleason. I basically have a question. In regards to the first topic, first of all, I do respect the First Amendment and the freedom of speech, but the question I have is, as in regards to events on the green, is there a permitting process that goes on prior to allowing these groups to occupy the facilities there? That's my first question. And the second statement that I would like to make is there some way, if that's the case, that regardless of the organization, if they can negotiate the timing that would be appropriate for businesses and working around the situations that many of the businesses have in town? I guess that's what I'm presenting to the board. First of all, is there a process in which someone requests a permit for use of the green?
Do you want me to answer that?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, Mr. Gleason, no, currently there is not. The town of Chester does not have a use of town property policy. Many towns recently in the past couple of years have adopted them. The select board will be looking at one, but currently as it stands right now, no, there is not a permitting process.
It sounds like maybe that might be something that needs to be looked at.
As I said, the board will be looking at in the next couple of weeks.
It
Yep.
seems like it would be appropriate. And again, regardless of the side of the political spectrum you're
Will have nothing
on,
to do with politics.
you know,
It's events and use of town
It seems to make
property.
sense at this
Yep.
point in time.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Marilyn?
Well, I wanted to say thank you for Frank Kelly for offering a little bit of levity and Sherry for stealing my thunder. I think the issue here really is the use of the green. And thank you, Julie, for filling us in on the fact that there currently is no process for the use of the green. I do want to point out that the green is sort of the quintessential public forum. It is an historical space for people to assemble and to engage in their free speech, both of which are protected by the United States Constitution and the Vermont Constitution. It's important that that right not be lost to any group, regardless of their message. It's my understanding that there were more than 2 events since in the last month. All 3 of them were peaceful assemblies. There was an event last fall that was on the Green and the Inn, and that was a peaceful assembly. Those are really critically important events in our community. And I would hate to see any restrictions put in place that favor the rights of businesses who are not protected by the Constitution over the rights of the individuals whose right to assemble and to speak and are protected by the Constitution. So as you fashion a policy, I would urge you to keep that in mind. I also want to point out that there is parking, right? And so, and there are new signs, really nice signs, that point to parking. And so, you know, those could be highlighted so that when there's an event, regardless of who's sponsoring the event, that businesses in town know that there are parking and they can direct their customers to parking so that the impact on their business is minimized. But I think that the town officers, that all of you have an important job to do, which is to appreciate that, yes, there is a tension, but also to protect our constitutional rights to assemble and to engage in free speech. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott Blair, do you have a comment to make?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Hi. Thanks so much. So I'm Scott Blair. I own the Southern Pie Cafe that's on the Green that has been spoken about these different protests all over social media outlets, saying that we have been a successful outlet for these events. I would like to address my personal opinion about this and also for our business. This has been another eventful situation that has actually put a damper on our neighbors. I'm not worried about my business and the traffic per se for these type of events, but once you start interfering in the neighborhood of all the businesses, we are very fortunate and we are food. People come to us regardless if there's an event on the Green or not. And my partner or my neighbors that are on the Green have been disturbed by this. I echo what Sharon and Amber both have said, that this has been a disturbance of a lot of businesses on the Green. And if any protesters, I'm not saying either side either, I'm very neutral. Anybody that knows me knows I'm very neutral. If you were a business owner and you had customers coming from out of town that were driving through the middle of town where the Green is, what type of appearance are these customers going to be seeing? They're not going to be finding any parking spots. They're going to be seeing 2 sides arguing and screaming across the road at each other, which did happen the last protest. And this is happening all over Facebook. Politics have ruined our town in the last year. It is very unfortunate of the community that we have had in the past that has changed. These protests, I'm all for the right to protest and the freedom of speech. The issue with the business owners is the location, because it is disturbing their business and their liveliness. If you are not a business owner and you frequent these businesses, we thank that all the time. But on the weekends, it's people that work during the week, that come from out of state, that come from out of other towns. It's very disturbing being a business owner and seeing there's no parking spots for anybody. One business is is very frustrated over the situation that's happening, which actually affects the entire green. If we have a couple of businesses that are getting affected, it does affect all of us. You can look at our business and say that we are successful because we're selling pie and coffee to a lot of people, which yes, we're thankful for that. But we're a strong community on the green, regardless of our differences. We are all still united as a green business area. And I just wanted to put my opinion out about that and to please ask the board, the select board, to really consider bringing this to the next select board meeting, talking about this and really having another option, because it's disturbing my neighbors, not me, but my neighbors it is. And I do own property on the green where the cafe is. And if it keeps escalating more and more every single time, multiple times a month, you're making our business front look like a battle scene rather than a business scene with community. That is it.
Thank you, Scott. Anyone else? Anyone else like to chime in on this?
Scott McDonald has his hand raised.
Okay, thank you. Hold on.
Roy Spalding, Cassets. It's basically a scenario. Burlington was once the shining star of Vermont, and it started out peaceful protests, on and on. It grew, things got bigger. Church Street in Burlington was one of the most beautiful places in Vermont. Now, you can see with something small starts like this, it ruins a community. You look at, there's a spot for this, and it's not in the middle of town. Look at Church Street in Burlington. Businesses are closed. It's a dangerous place to be. It's one of the most dangerous cities. It's in the top 5 in the country from last I read. Where did it start? You know, it all started with small protests that got away. So, and I urge you guys, you know, really put some good guardrails on this, potentially move it to a better spot. As Scott Blair said, it is affecting businesses and it's affecting the town as a whole. Everybody has the right to free speech, but when it affects the town as a whole, there's obviously some guardrails that can be put in place to help mitigate some of the damage that's done. It's very simple. If you don't, you know, look at Burlington, there's your example how it ends. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Scott Blair, I see your hand is still up, and I heard Scott McDonald. Scott, go ahead.
Hi, everybody. Thank you. It really hurts to see our community so divided, and I'm hearing good things from both. I even hate to say both sides, but I'm going to use that term, unfortunately. The green, as a woman recently just said, is sort of a heartbeat of our community. And you can make the argument that as a heartbeat, it would be a perfect place to hold protests. And you could also make the argument as the heartbeat that it should be less encumbered by things like that. And you know, we have schools there. Sometimes schools have events on days where classes aren't in. There's people going to the library with their children. There's businesses of different kinds. And there's people who don't share the views of the protesters who come and sometimes make a bit of noise. There were people with trucks burning smoke and stuff and whatever. And everybody's all riled up. And they're all good people. And when I came here 9 years ago, nobody acted this way. People just quietly tolerated each other, even if they didn't like each other. There wasn't any of this anger and divisiveness and arguing and abuse on Facebook. None of that existed. And it's really hard to watch. I'd love to see people just allow everybody to have their opinions and just leave them alone. And that's what we're supposed to do in Vermont, isn't it? So what I was getting at here is maybe the green's not the right place. If this is political stuff, you've got that nice little triangular park right near Town Hall. The train station has parking right across the road there for all kinds of people. Maybe you could make that a place for political dissent. It would be away from downtown, away from the schools, away from the library. These protests get a lot of press. They get a lot of posts on Facebook, articles in various newspapers. So all that would still happen if it were moved. And since Town Hall is the political center of Chester, that area might be worth considering. That's all. And peaceful protests are required not to get in the way of people conducting their livelihoods. That's part of what a peaceful protest is. So that's worthy of consideration as well. So that's all I have to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Scott. Ma'am?
Hello. My name is Judy Hallberg, and I'd just like to point out regarding parking on the green while the protest took place, the most recent one, in advance of that, all of the information that was sent out to anyone who expressed interest in participating specified that parking at the Cobley public lot was available, and that's where people should park. They were directed not to park at the green, and at the expense of one of the organizers of the demonstration on the green, signage was made to put up at the parking places on the green saying parking was reserved for customers of the businesses on the green. And so protesters, the people who were involved in the protest on the green, were directed in advance, days in advance, not to park on the green, but to park elsewhere. As far as I know, most people did. I walked. There you go.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, Mr. Mancuso.
Steve Mancuso, how are you guys tonight?
We're here.
At least you're all still smiling. Okay. All right. I've been before both housing and planning, and I must say you appoint very patient people. And I have a list of empty buildings, empty lots. They all used to be businesses in Chester. Okay, and I know this is boring, some of you people that have heard me before. Just bear with me a little bit. This is a list of about 30 empty buildings. I'm sorry, Phil. This is a list of about 30 empty buildings, empty lots, places that used to be business, and this is just the main drags. This doesn't include the ones for sale. This doesn't include the back roads, okay? And this just looks bad, all right? It does when you come to town and you're passing by all these places. And you know, I'm not going to read this. I'll leave you if you want to bore yourself and read this yourself. And but there's a point here. Chester has not been a very friendly place to do business for whatever reason. There's a lot of external causes for this. You can blame it on COVID. You can blame it on the economy or floods, for that matter. But there are some internal influences here too. So getting back to the main thing that is going on here tonight, if the town is going to make ordinances, bylaws, permits, anything else for like the event they're talking about on the town green, you have to consider the impact it's going to have on the businesses here. We can't afford to lose any more businesses. They can't afford to stay here or do business here, okay? If you have to consider what the impact is going to be on them, you know, or it's just going to end badly for us. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. Mr. Gorski. Matt Gorski, do you have something to say?
Yes, I do. I was trying to unmute myself. It took a little bit.
Okay, thank you. Sorry for my impatience.
So I've been hearing quite a lot about the use of public places. And I just heard two things of like, oh, if it keeps going this way, we're going to end up like Burlington. Or, oh, think of the children. They see people arguing. I have to say that it is my opinion that a public discourse of showing protest in a well-populated and traveled area is at the very heart of our democracy. We do have a public forum for a reason. Now, I'm not saying not put some guardrails up, but what I basically heard from a few of the speakers this evening is stick it out of the way where it's not going to be seen. Go put it someplace where it's out of the way and not going to bother anyone. Well, I'm somewhat of a student of history. And no major change in this country has ever taken place without protests, and often those protests leading to violence. I'm not advocating violence. But that's where it usually leads because people don't want to see the protests or they want to stick their head in their sand and ignore it. Now, it doesn't matter which side of it you're on. You got the right to be said, to say what you got to say, and you got the right to be heard. People don't want to listen, they can go somewhere else. But to advocate sticking it out of the way where it's not going to bother anybody is antithetical to the democratic process, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
This is Sue Bailey. I'd like to just say something briefly.
Go ahead.
Just since it was brought up about Burlington, Vermont, this is from October 31st of 2024, and it says that Burlington, I'm reading this from a Forbes article, it says that Burlington is one of the safest cities in the U.S. It's actually number 4 for safety. So I just thought that was important to call out. Now, as far as Vermont goes, Vermont is the safest state in the country. And if you compare Burlington to the rest of Vermont, yes, Burlington, isn't the safest compared to the rest of Vermont, but Burlington is number 4 in the country.
Thank you. So we have been talking about this for over an hour, and unless somebody has a very burning desire, I'd like to move on. So thank you all for participating. I value your comments. I made a list of the people who spoke and the concerns, and appreciate all of you taking part in this part of the discussion. Next on our agenda is old business, and can you bring us through that, Julie?
I can. There's just a couple quick items. Just to update you, I would like to get a general consensus of the board, certainly not a motion, but on purchasing the devices for the board. I did get a cost. Individual laptops would be about $8,000. As you can recall, we talked about the benefit of that is because of things like public records requests and you're using personal devices, they are subject if anything should ever get pushed. So I do think it's wise at some point to move along to that. It's also a device that can then be loaded with, all town policies, all previous packets. So when you decide to not run again or your term is up, it can be handed to your successor. So there's a lot of value. The question is, these are obviously unbudgeted funds. So does the select board want to do this purchase now? Would you like me to just do email addresses for each of you and put this into the budget discussion for 2026? Just some guidance on what you'd like to do.
Ariana?
I've been giving some thought to this since you first brought it to our attention. I would personally advocate right now for us to do the email addresses and postpone moving into devices. I very personally, individually, hope there's a better solution and feel like there's probably a better solution out there in the next couple months that we can figure out. The idea of adding yet another laptop to each of our lives feels like there's got to be a better way. So my personal opinion is if we can go to the dedicated email addresses, and then this invites the 5 of us to be far more disciplined than we may have been. So I'm ready to sign up for following all the rules and trying to do it right and keeping all the emails in the same place. But that's my opinion at the time.
I agree with Ariana, 100%.
Yeah, I also, with the emails and stuff, and as far as the laptop goes, I gave it a shot when we first got them about 8 or 10 years ago, and I lasted about a month. But I will make my best effort, and I think it should be a budgeted item next year instead of spending it.
And I can look at other, we can talk to the IT teams about other solutions versus devices, maybe some shared files type of thing. Yeah.
Cloud shared
Yep.
files or something
Yep.
like that.
Yeah, we certainly can.
Yep, I agree with an email address would be better than what I'm carrying around. Another one. There's 3 on my desk right now, so 4 would really make it a little crowded.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I'm happy with that as well.
Okay, I will move forward in that direction. And then just kind of a public service announcement, the Reservoir Dam, people may go up to the Reservoir Dam and see that it is very low. If anybody recalls, during the July 2023 flooding, the dam overtopped, took away, eroded the earthen portion of the dam. We now have engineers on staff that are doing a full evaluation of that dam as is required by Vermont Dam Safety. So they are requiring that we keep the water level of the dam low so that there is no pressure on the concrete structure that is subground. So if you go up there, the reservoir is not very attractive right now. That is the reason why. There will be discussions coming in the future about what the town is going to do with that structure once the engineers have figured out.
It's back up.
I feel like I swore a lot.
It's back up over the
It is. Well, the
spillway
rains have, and that's going to, the valves are open, so that's going to go back down again, but yeah. And then just on the FEMA property buyouts, 2 buyouts on Route 11. Just a reminder, fire department will be doing some training in those buildings while we own them before they're demolished. It will not be live fire. But also we were able to go through, we did have permission, we were able to remove 3 mini split units and a hot water heater that were relatively new that we'll be able to use in other town buildings. So that was free to the town, and some solar panels on the back of one of the roofs we'll be looking to potentially take down and store for maybe future use on one of the town buildings. And then in your packet, doesn't really need to be discussed, but in your packet is, again, a letter that we wrote to the EMS Advisory Committee and our legislators on some concerns regarding some studies that are being discussed and performed at this time. So that is in your packet for just as an FYI. That's it.
Any other old business? Okay, next on our agenda is the review and recommendation of a school board director. And I'd like to just make a couple of comments before we get into this. There's been a lot of discussion in town about this particular issue, and due to that, those discussions and the polarizing nature of the topic and the fact that we have no real say in this decision, we're just able to make a recommendation. My advice or recommendation would be that we don't give any advice to the school board in this matter, because I think the school board is capable of making their own decisions without our input. That being said, if anyone else would like to chime in on this, now's your opportunity.
Yeah, I would like on this particular nomination, only because some of the information that was presented to the board and that we're in possession of. And I think sometimes when we are on the periphery and we're not directly involved with the decision, I still think it's important to have more eyes on nominations as they happen and what's going on in the town. I realize that the tradition started back when school boards were sub-boards of the select board, and it just carried through over the years and stuff, but it has changed. But they still offer that input that if we desire, I think we should still keep that input if we need it. A lot of times what happens is we have more than one person going for a position, and we don't pick a person out from it, but we just assume or go through what we have and say, yeah, that we're okay with any of the people that are being suggested for the position. And if that were the case, I would say fine. But in this case, I feel strongly about a candidate that's applying for this position, that he should not be allowed to go forward to be on that board. And I know it's going to be a little controversial and stuff, but I am strongly opposed to having a person on the board knowing the information that I know about that subject, and the fact that the rest of the board has also been privy to some information regarding that subject. So I strongly recommend Penny Benelli for that position as a single select board member. So it's up to the board to decide how they want to deal with it.
I completely agree with Lee, where I don't think, although there is trouble with no matter what you look and no matter other rock you turn over. I don't think we're experts in what's really going on in the school. I have enough trouble with what's going on in the town. I would rather have that board replace the people than we make a recommendation or cast the first stone, so to speak.
And the point is that we can make a recommendation and the school board could ignore it.
Could ignore it, right.
It's not binding at all.
Right. I completely understand that.
Anyone else?
And I will still go back to the point that I want to make sure that my voice is heard in this.
Oh, absolutely.
That my voice is heard on this position and stuff. Yep. Because of the circumstances that are surrounding. If it wasn't because of the circumstances that are in place on one of these candidates, I would not be so adamant about having my voice heard regarding this, because I agree that it is not our final position, but it is also our job, I think, to speak up when we see something that it is egregious as what I have witnessed and what I have read regarding one of the subjects. So.
Okay, thank you. Ariana, Tim? Okay. And Arnie, to your point, I would recommend that you approach the school board. You've made your opinion known here. Unless there's a burning desire to vote on this, I think we're good to just keep going.
Well, the chairman of the school board is here, so she's hearing a voice. She's hearing my voice here. So I mean, I'm getting my message out here, and I know it has no weight, and they could turn around and do what they want. I just want it to be clear where I stand and what we're going forward.
Yep. Thank you. Mrs. Mahusky?
Here, Marilyn.
So mine is really sort of a process question. So if the board is taking the position here, I know you haven't voted yet, but if you're taking the position here that when there is more than one candidate that the board needs to pass a name along to the school board, are you then taking the position that you're not going to weigh in on any future candidates? Because I think what you're doing is you're setting a precedent. So if today the decision is you're not going to take a position regarding either of the candidates and let the school board do that, that's fine. But then I think you need to do that the next time two candidates come forward and that you don't weigh in. And then I also just want to point out is that may be different, and granted the circumstances are a little bit different than when you're appointing a member to the board, to this body's other boards, right? For example, the DRB or the Planning Commission or any other boards. I think you have greater authority in that sense to say we're going to weigh the candidates or not. So I just want to point that out, that is, if this is the decision you're going to make, and I applaud Arnie taking a strong position, but if this is the position the collective is going to take, then I'm going to encourage you to follow that process in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Need?
Lee, if I may.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Ariana.
I just wanted to be clear on one thing. They are completely and utterly different. The appointments we make on all of those boards and commissions and everything else are 100% our responsibility. According to our understanding of the bylaws, we actually do not need to take a position. I would, at this point, when I came into this meeting, my personal position was reviewing 2 candidates regarding a board that I don't participate in and I'm not familiar with the operation of is inappropriate. So my own personal statement was going to be, when there are more candidates to evaluate, perhaps we will review. But at this point, this is not our area of expertise. The other commissions are. I would discourage us from setting any official precedent about whether we do or don't review, because it's entirely possible 3 years from now your select board will be comprised of parents and teachers.
I think you're misunderstanding.
Hold on.
And are you going to allow the dialogue back and forth?
Oh, sorry.
Yes, if you could just clarify briefly.
I'm not suggesting that you need to do that for your DRB, and I acknowledge there's a difference. I'm saying, though, but if other school board candidates come forward and you're going to take this position today, which your point is that you don't feel the board should be taking a position in any event, whether now, I'm just pointing out that if that's the decision this board makes, this body makes today, then that's the decision you need to make going forward. In other words, the next time 3 candidates come forward, you're going to take the same position and just send it back over to the school board.
And I'm simply disagreeing with you. That's all.
So you think that the
So, okay, excuse me.
just like, can I get a clarification then? So you're saying that if it's a school board candidate, you're taking it that next time it's another school board candidate, you're taking a different position and saying that you would be reviewing those?
I'm saying, yeah, it's open each time. In my personal opinion, yes, that's my interpretation, that I feel as if we're being asked to consider possibly advising, then we can be asked to consider possibly advising. Well, may we? Or
Sure.
not?
Well, I'd like to hear Mr. Needs. I appreciate what you're saying.
Yeah,
And I don't want to have a back and forth. I don't think this is the right time for it. But I agree with you. I don't think that it matters whether we approve or disapprove anyone today. That doesn't tie our hands in the future, my opinion.
But
Go ahead.
I'd be happy to discuss it later.
This board has weighed in the past. So this is not an unusual request. This is fundamentally what the board has done in the past. I'd be seriously disappointed if the board sidestepped this because it's uncomfortable. I think there's an absolute ethical responsibility for this board to weigh in, given the information you have.
Thank you. Yes. And then this will be it for this discussion.
My name is Joan Grossman. I just wanted to follow that up. You obviously have some information that the rest of us don't have and may not have at all, and I would like to hear it. And I would or at least like you to consider weighing in on this, because we may not be privy to the information that you are. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to state that normally the way that school board members are added to the board is through an election, not an appointment. This is a special circumstance. The duty to appoint somebody falls on the school board, not on the select board. We are given an opportunity to weigh in if we want to. We don't have to. And the school board is under no obligation to take our recommendations one way or the other. So from my perspective, due to the amount of heat that has been generated over the past few days over this issue, I don't feel that it's necessary for us to, or even reasonable for us to, make a stand or take a stand on this. Arnie notwithstanding, you've made your voice heard. And I think, from my opinion, that's sufficient. So at this point, if anyone would like to consider another way of handling this, we can talk about that. Tim?
I think Ms. Grossman has a valid point and a valid request, and I'm very uncomfortable with not providing her with the information that's public information that's been provided to us. So I don't know what the process is for that, and I know it's a can of worms. I can see Julie wincing over there, but her point is valid. So my suggestion would be that we provide, maybe we do it on a one-on-one basis, but provide that information.
I'm not sure what the precedence is here.
It's a public document. It was given to you in a public setting. I would just caution you announcing somebody's legal background in a public setting. If somebody would like a copy of the document, I would be happy to share it with you. But I do not think that the select board should put itself in that position. You're
Thank you,
going to
Julie.
ask for trouble.
I agree with that.
So I guess per your request, if you'd like to access the document that we have, talk to the town manager and she will be happy to provide you with a copy of that. Any further discussion on this? Nope. Okay, hearing none, we will move on. Next on our agenda, with great patience, is Green Mountain Power. Those of you who are not wanting to stay for the rest of our boring meeting, you may head out.
I'll wait till the dust settles for a minute here. Karaoke?
Seen it 100 times.
I've actually never seen it. You've seen it.
Yep.
But I've never seen it.
It's been presented to several public meetings.
I tried to kill it, fell on the floor, I tried to roll over it, and it disappeared. I'm just giving you a heads up, because and now I'm.
So if I could have,
Edited list.
if I could have quiet in the room, please. If you have conversations, take them out into the hallway.
Close the door.
Could I have order in the room, please?
Let me go close.
Conversations need to stop. Thank you. Sir, go ahead.
Great. Thank you so much. Thank you, Julie, for having us up here tonight. Tim Jones from Green Mountain Power. I'm a program manager in our operations infrastructure program. With me tonight is Carol Weston, who's a member of our executive leadership team. We're here informally tonight to share some exciting news about an infrastructure rebuild program that we've undertaken and is now in full bore in the southern.
Excuse me, folks, can you wrap it up or take it out? Thank you.
Thank you, Ariana.
Take it from the top. All right. So we're here to
Start over.
Who am I? No. So we're here to share some exciting news about a program that we have underway to rebuild and make resilient a great deal of our infrastructure here in the southern part of the state. It has a name. It's called the Zero Outage Initiative. And basically, that puts Green Mountain Power on a 2-year path culminating in the fall of 2026, where we are going to identify, prioritize, and rebuild critical components of our infrastructure in the southern part of the state. Just a little bit of history, how we got here today. If any of you are serving in the board at the time, or certainly residents of Chester, in the March of 2023, or shortly prior to that, we had a pretty devastating heavy wet snowstorm that swept over a good portion of this part of the state. Certainly was very devastating, not only to our infrastructure, but the severity and the duration of the outages that our customers experienced was also devastating to us as a company that is as safety and customer focused as we are. From that point forward, we've been on a feverish planning exercise to put this program together, get approval from the state last fall, and embark on that program. So in terms of how that bears on Chester, our goal was to identify the worst performing circuits on our system. And just so happens that the CHG 11 circuit that serves Chester is #1 on that list. And you may not be experiencing that, so to speak. I think two of the reasons that the circuit has gotten such to the priority list is due mostly to Grafton and Athens and the condition of our plant in those two towns and what it's requiring for us to identify those key mainline circuits that we need to repair, and also allow us to bring some other engineering to bear that allows us a lot more remote control access over our system when we do encounter storm events. So reliability and resiliency comes through means and methods, new materials, new line rebuilds, be it overhead or underground. And then our protection schemes allow us to remotely operate into these areas and manipulate feeds and lines and switches when we see outages and when we have the ability to mitigate those and keep certain communities on while we attack repairs on other parts of the system. So just the main issue probably that Chester would experience right now is not necessarily from our distribution system, but our substation up the road. We are fed by a 46 kV line here in Chester that we are currently working on as a separate project, trying to expand our right-of-way to 100 feet and really get relief from the trees that line both sides of our transmission line. So that would typically be a problem that would take the power out in Chester. What we're working on south in Grafton and Londonderry and Westminster is to rebuild those feeds in those areas in the event that, just to say, something happened with the transmission line, by example, we could immediately pivot within a matter of seconds and refeed Chester Village from either Londonderry or through our Westminster substation. So many of you may have noticed we've done some rebuild work west of the village on Route 11 out towards Londonderry, again rebuilding that line from our Londonderry substation this way. And we're in phase 4 of our rebuild through Saxons River, which essentially goes from our Westminster substation all the way to the gates of Grafton. So those are two big projects right now that we're rebuilding that will impact the experience here in Chester directly. So not necessarily here for permission for a project tonight, but just wanted to let you know what's going on in the surrounding community. So we're touring all of these select boards over the months here. Chester is someplace that we have not been to announce ourselves other than following up from that storm and promising a better experience in the future. So really down south of the village here, probably down in the Popple Dungeon Road area is probably someplace that we might come back to and look at doing some projects in that area that are remote, cross-country right away, very challenging areas to maintain and serve and rebuild. But right now, like I said, our focus is really in the Grafton and Athens area because, together that will improve the regional reliability of the Chester area. So that at that point in time, I would come back to Julie when we identify some other projects where we need the town's permission to work in your town right of ways, and we would offer up to a specific project or projects, and then come back and appear and obviously take direct questions on the merits of the project. But again, today, just informally, wanted to come introduce ourselves and let you know what we've been up to in this part of the state, what we will be up to over the next 16 or 17 months. And if our proof of concept goes the way we want it to, there'll be more to the program. And there's also a storage aspect to the program that has not yet gone live, something else that we're working on, and that would dovetail in with sort of that last mile that we would rebuild to, again, focusing on our main lines, most number of customers, and that's the calculus we look at, number of line miles in your town, number of customers, and the severity and intensity of the outage history together in a 5-year period. That sort of gives us our prioritization of how we start to identify and take down projects. So the storage piece, again, a story to be told, but that would really take us from a main line and look up maybe at a feeder where there's a couple of houses or some other challenging aspects of of customers to reach, and there's going to be a storage program that we hope to be able to roll out as well. So just happy to take any questions or any comments that you have.
Yeah, I got a question. The substation up the road, are you planning on increasing the capacity there or just?
No.
Okay. That's too bad.
Not currently. So Our engineering group is always evaluating that. We're working on Londonderry right now. So that's probably the closest neighbor where we're doing a substation upgrade right now.
Okay.
So I had a,
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I had a question regarding that, the main lines on Route 11 heading out to Londonderry.
Yes.
They're really unsightly, and I know you can't do anything about it, but you're asking for a 100-foot right-of-way to clear trees
Oh,
on
no,
those?
sorry. I just want to clarify that I was talking about our transmission line that runs out cross-country. So that's the type of commitment or money or aesthetics that we cannot take on our distribution system. So that's not something that we would experience. So we minimize our cutting and our vegetation management around residential areas much more tightly, basically trying to keep ourselves 10 feet outside the conductor if we're in a tree-lined area.
So when you're replacing these poles,
yes,
and you have the other utilities hanging on the old poles, is there any way to expedite their transfer? Because now we have two sets of poles and they both look like hell, and one of them are hanging and some aren't. And it seems like it always takes years before they transfer all the other whatever's hanging on there, cable, TV, telephone, onto the new poles. Is that in your jurisdiction to expedite that, or how does that work?
It is. We're working on it. So those are our joint utilities. We license space to them on our poles, and I couldn't agree with you more. It is an unsightly thing to see double and sometimes triple pole lines. I can guarantee you it's feedback we take in every community that we've been to. We're working with the state. So our leadership is working in Montpelier with the leadership of some of the public service-oriented communications oversight. We're working operationally with our telecommunications partners, sharing all our plans with them and doing everything that we can do to entice them to join us on this journey on the timeline that we all need. So if we're going underground, we're making provisions for them to go underground with us. If we're rebuilding like that into our newest spacer cable with those tall poles, room for everyone, that's a big initiative of ours right now, is getting those transfers done in a timely fashion once all our work is done. So it is on our radar. Apologize for that. It's something, again, that we face everywhere we go right now. It vexes us for sure, but we're working on it, and I believe we're going to have a good solution here, and we'll start to see those things fall in line.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, I live in Smokeshare, and you've already staked poles in there. And I'm very concerned about, you have poles staked where you can see you're crossing the river at opposite ends of a bridge over the middle of a bridge. That, we need to be able to have clearance there. You're not even talking about that, but when you start putting pole stakes in, it's time to get a little concerned.
Okay. Could you give your physical address? Do you have a road?
262 Cemetery Road.
Cemetery Road, okay.
Right, so you have the first bridge, you have the pole, where the pole sets are within 5 feet of the side. On the third bridge, you have them right over the center, right across it.
Okay. Well, we can take a look at that. So we have a contractor out there that are doing these designs for us, and that's what they do is they go out and prospectively start looking at how they would rebuild it. So the stakes, it's non-committal. There's a long way to go once we put those stakes in the ground. There are people to talk to. There are resources to consider. So it really is a first blush, but I appreciate your feedback, and that's how we know. People call us all the time and say, I see a stake here. What does that mean? And that's the feedback. We can't know that people are already unnerved by it.
So just as you have this here, we had, I have a road of which when CV had it, and I was not a customer, I was off the grid, that they came up and crushed a culvert on my property. Then they told me that my road wasn't up to spec and I wasn't a customer. The agreement that I had was that you weren't going to send a line truck up there, that you would always send a smaller vehicle. And it seems that that agreement has been totally tossed. Can we honor agreements? Can we count on agreements that you have made in the past, please?
I believe so. Obviously, CV does not exist anymore.
No, but my
one family,
agreement was
but
with Green Mountain.
we certainly we can look into that. I think there are emergency situations, so if it's an everyday thing, I don't know. I guess you're telling me the history that you're telling me that we completely disregard any agreement that we've made and we go up there.
So don't mean to butt in here, but I don't know how long you're going to stay, but maybe we could take a 5-minute recess and you guys can talk
absolutely.
about this, because, not that this isn't fun to listen to, but.
Before the recess,
Tim,
I have a couple questions.
Yeah, Tim had a question or
So
two.
just for my clarification, I thought Velco owned and managed all of the transmission lines in Vermont. Are you saying that?
We have some of our own.
Okay, I didn't realize that. And so that 46 kV is Green Mountain Power?
Correct.
Cool. The second one is there a vision for adding more solar capacity in Chester, and is that restricted by the substation or by the feeds?
I would say that that's restricted by the developers in that space to identify an opportunity and come to Green Mountain Power to talk the feasibility of a development that they want to do. So it's not something that we would.
It's my understanding that the line here is at capacity for new interconnections. Is that incorrect?
I can't comment on that.
I had that conversation with GMP a couple of years ago, and what I was told was that the substation is undersized for more solar, not the lines, but it could have been both. I don't know.
Is that something you could?
Well, what we do know is that if there is an undercapacity for something new, then when a developer comes forward and says, I want to do X or Y, that has to be engineered and a feasibility study. So there's a formal process by which they could petition us to rebuild something at their expense to accommodate them.
I think what I'm hearing is for a large development. I mean, just rooftop, backyard, behind the meter solar.
Oh, you know what? I mean, that's something that, you're served by the Springfield district here. And so that's a call basically to our service center, talking directly to one of our distribution designers and basically just telling them what you want to do at your individual property. And then that discussion comes about, what's your service, how you're served.
So looking at the line maps where it shows the capacity, they're green, yellow, orange, and red. And
So what I've heard, I've had those discussions, and if it's a 15 kW or smaller system, it usually gets approved.
Okay.
So while the line is technically at capacity, it's not for smaller projects.
Okay.
But we have a distributed generation group that onboards all of these types of questions, like I said. So you're always at liberty, obviously, to talk to our one of our designers in Springfield. You have my contact information now as well, but we do have a group that fields those requests, and we do have a process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do we have your contact information?
Julie must.
No, I have not shared it, but I can.
Yep,
please do.
Please do.
Anything else?
I think we're good. Thank you.
Thank you.
So I just want to follow up on something I said. Are you going to hang around for a bit, or can you just contact him by phone,
Yeah,
Peter?
if I get the information, we can talk.
Okay, so we're good. You guys don't need to stick around.
Yep, we can do that.
It's just tim.jones at greenmountainpower.com, all spelled out.
Next on our agenda is creation of part-time facilities position. I think
Charlie-
that's what
Charlie
that means
still work there?
for 2026.
You got
Yeah, I
it.
got what that means.
We're good. Thank you.
Thank you, folks. Safe
Thank you.
travels.
So, as you know, Jeff Holden is going to be retiring from water wastewater sometime around the end of this year. And so the plan has always been that Wayne Wickens we would be evaluating him for the position to take over. Through some recent events and conversations, Wayne is not sure that that's really what he would like to do at this point. But with the number of projects that we have in town, for municipal buildings, and the amount of work that is being done, one of the conversations that I had with Wayne is if he would be interested in kind of staying with water, wastewater part-time, but also working with Steve part-time in facilities. We could easily justify 2 full-time facilities people. they are running constantly, and there is an amount of work. And the difference is work is now getting done where it was always reactive. Now we are proactive in things. And the other thing is projects that we are completing. We're doing the work in-house instead of having to go out to contractors and to subcontractors to do the work for us. So by having the staff, we are saving a substantial amount of money to the taxpayer. The request at this point is we need to advertise for this next position. So it would be nice to know if the board would be willing to entertain the creation of a part-time facilities position that would not take effect until the 2026 budget. It would not start until January of 26. But it gives us, if the board is willing to entertain that, then it gives us, then we know what we're looking to hire for water sewer. What it would do for the water sewer end is instead of having 4 full-time employees, they would have 3.5. Water wastewater ran for many years with 3 full-time employees. That's it. We were going to be evaluating if we needed 4 full-time employees anyway. So having 3.5 kind of splits that difference, and how the details of how it would all play out and work and division of time and so on and so forth, is something that we would have to figure out with scheduling and those types of things. But everybody feels that it could be done. So I'm just throwing that out there. That's a position that we really feel is needed, and so it's adding a part-time. So there's no addition of benefits, there's no additional any of that because he's already a full-time employee. His hours will simply be split between water, wastewater, and general fund.
So there wouldn't be really any increase in cost to the town?
Well, there would be because you're taking what was full-time water, wastewater, and now you're taking half of him and putting him to the general fund.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You have been doing this anyway. It seems like Steve has
But we
been,
have.
Yeah, kind of.
We have, but what we're doing is Wayne is just juggling.
Yep.
It would be nice to be able to have him dedicated.
Yep.
I want, Lee, if I may?
Yeah, go ahead.
I just wanted to comment, I've had the opportunity on one small project to work with Steve and Wayne together, and they're a great team. Everything, for the last 2.5 years, when you've worked with your staff and your department heads and you've come up with things to recommend to us, it's been fantastic. So if this continues along the path we've been going for cross-training over in the public safety building and that whole idea of looking at the work that needs to be done and how we can get it done, I applaud the effort and I applaud the openness with your team, with your guys, to be willing to look at other stuff. So I think this sounds fantastic, having read through what you sent us in advance. And again, having seen Steve and Wayne as a team, it seems like a really great fit for the town.
Tim?
I think it makes a lot of sense, especially since it's kind of been happening anyway. I guess my question is, and I'm sure you've got this covered, Julie, but for my own clarification, I think that Wayne has some certifications and training that maybe other staff don't, but maybe there's duplication with Jeff right now. Mm-hmm. So how do you see, so with the person we hired to backfill Jeff's position would have to have those certifications?
We would be looking for somebody, so there's a couple different things that we could do. I mean, what would be ideal would be to hire a water wastewater superintendent that comes in. You know, if we can find that, it will certainly be at a higher pay scale. That would be ideal. That would be the easiest transition. When I consider supervisory positions, I don't necessarily just look at what certifications do they have. I look more closely at do they have leadership skills. Mm-hmm. We can train for the water wastewater. So there is a conversation going. We haven't landed on anything about what is the priority. So Wayne carries all of his certifications. So the plant could operate under Wayne's certifications. So do we get somebody in? Do we promote from within? Is there somebody that we have for staff that maybe doesn't have the years of experience but has really great tendencies towards leadership? So we're going to do kind of a lot of evaluation there. Again, what would be ideal is to find somebody that had everything that could slide right in. That is what will be our primary.
Right.
If we can't find that, we'll start getting a little creative.
So would they be able to operate under Wayne certifications, even though he's part-time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. And I mean, and then there's other things to look at as well. I mean, there are many towns that also bring in companies like Simon's that basically your plant operates under their licensing and you contract certain work under them.
Sounds expensive.
Yeah. Many towns do it because then you don't have the full-time staff.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of, again, we're going to advertise for that water wastewater superintendent. That is what is ideal. If after a couple months we can't find that, then we'll start having some creative conversations about thinking outside the box and how can we fill that role. But knowing now if that's what I'm looking for and will there be an agreement for Wayne to be part-time facilities helps us because we will start advertising soon is what we'll do. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no problem. I think it's a great idea.
I think you have your consensus.
Arnie, do you?
Yeah,
Are you in
I
agreement?
think it's a great idea.
Okay.
I think it would work out really well.
Okay.
I bet Sue didn't hear any of that.
Sorry, Sue.
Well, and Arnie's another one who has worked with both of them a few times.
So do we need to make a motion? or
No,
is-
I
is
just
there-
need a general consensus because we're not going to be that conversion is not taking place until I have it budgeted. If we feel like there's a need or a time that it would be great to go ahead and put that into play earlier, then I'll come back and I'll get approval to spend the money this year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next on the agenda is Class 4 road policy. In your packet, you should have received a number of documents related to this, including a map showing the roads in Chester, a Class 4 roads policy, draft policy or proposed policy from VLCT, as well as the town of Barnard's Class 4 highway policy. So we're bringing this up for discussion to see where we want to head. Does anybody have anything specific regarding these policies that they were able to pull out of these documents?
Well, I mean, I read the model Class 4 roads policy, but I think it's going to take quite a bit of discussion to go through each of these things and think about, do we like what we see here? Do we want to tweak it? Do we want to adopt it as it is?
So, yeah, and that's
Point of clarification,
go ahead.
Mr. Chairman. Is this the moment when we are going to debate, discuss, and develop a Class 4 roads policy? Is that in this meeting on this agenda?
It doesn't need to be right now. I think the point of providing all this information to us as a board is for us to be able to digest it, to have a brief discussion if we want to, as to where we want to do, how deep we want to get into this. And I don't know if tonight's the time to do it, or we want to set it on the next agenda and then really dive into, because to Tim's point, there's a lot of information here. There's a lot of points that VLCT and their model may or may not fit Chester, and the town of Barnet is not the town of Chester, and so therefore we would want to have those discussions and go into each one of these things in depth.
I'm good either way. I just, as we go into the discussion, if we're going point by point, that's one way, and if we're talking generally about everything, that's another. Just trying to think about where we're headed.
Lee?
What? Yes.
Also, at your last meeting, you guys had talked about, one of the things you were going to talk about today, I thought, was whether or not this was an area where you wanted to utilize the volunteerism of the CCC to start pulling this together and bring some ideas to you. This might be a great project. They're willing to do it and would certainly streamline what came to the board. You had talked about that at the last meeting, that maybe you would discuss that in more detail at
Yeah,
this
thanks
one,
for
so-
that reminder.
We did bring it up at our last meeting and stuff, and they were receptive to helping out draft the policy. They were looking for a little direction on just some guidelines, whether they just go with a straight VLCT policy and then make some additions to it regarding priorities, because there was some talk about some of the priorities that should be emphasized, mainly usage and preservation, that they were very concerned about, as you know, for the CCC, because of trails and things that might happen with that. But basically, it was to get a policy formulated so that people know exactly where the town stands when it comes to our Class 4 roads, because right now we don't have any policy. And it just goes by state statute, which sometimes can be abused by people, because state statute says you could basically, you know, do this, do that, or ride on the road or not, and attempt this or attempt that. Whereas if you have an articulate town policy that has some guidelines and some guardrails, it puts a lot more constraint on what can happen or not happen on Class 4 roads. And the CCC, the group that at the meeting yesterday, was more than willing to sit down and try to hammer out a policy and then bring it before the board, and, you know, have everybody else chime in on it as far as ideas and thoughts, maybe tweak it one way or another. We realize that because we're not a commission, that's not a full-bodied commission of the board. We're just a committee, that we lack that authority to do that. So we need guidance and authority from the select board to even start attempting something like this, because we didn't want to go through all the work and then find out, well, you know, we're not going that route anyways.
Yep. Ariana?
I think that sounds great. I'm just wondering if we've all had a chance to review the two versions we were sent, does it make, I'm asking the four of you guys, does it make sense, if we feel like these are pretty much the direction we want to head in, to invite the CCC to review and then make a recommendation back to us, starting from these two documents, so that the directive is, start here, come back to us, let us know where they're in difference from each other, or what you might recommend as specific to Chester, and then let us review what comes from that?
Sure.
Does that, guys?
No, I'm fine with that.
That makes sense?
Yeah, I think that makes sense. And one of the things I was going to suggest is, and that was the nature of my first question, was, is there anything that jumps out at you from a review of what we've seen that we would want to pull out and give as direction to the CCC, if that's the way we're going to do this? So does anybody have anything that jumped out at them right away?
I felt that all of both policies could be applied. Like, everything could be tweaked, everything could be adjusted, but either or, some combination of both, which is why I would be very comfortable inviting the CCC to make a recommendation to us, but starting from these two documents.
It's completely missing. We don't have any in our town. We don't have any trails, and neither one of these covers that policy.
So
And
that if we
do
had
have-
trails in the future?
We could have, well, we have town roads our town roads connect to other towns' trails in multiple places. So I think in thinking ahead, you want to think about trails as well as Class 4, because you're starting off with all the roads. So when you start off with all the roads, and with the last court ruling on trails, we need to get that in there.
So the recommendation is these two policies and
trails.
Trails.
Yeah, we could definitely look at the trail things. I looked up online the other day on, I think it was Turnbridge in Vermont.
Turnbridge, that's
where
the big
there is
court
a
case.
court case.
Yes.
And I could not find any final documentation that they have resolved that issue.
So reach out to the league, Arnie, reach
Yeah.
out to the advocacy staff for the league, and they can probably bring you up to speed, because VLCT is following it.
Because the Supreme Court threw it back to the lower court, and they said, no, you got to fight it out and figure it out at that level. But
Yeah.
that was last October.
Yeah, yeah,
So
I think the league could, reach out to their legal advisory people. I think they could probably bring you up to date on where that's at. Yeah.
I'm just curious, everything here is labeled policy. Would this be an ordinance or a policy, and what's the legal difference?
I'll bring it up later, yeah. I'm sorry, what was
Would
that?
it be an ordinance or a policy, and what's the legal difference?
It would be a Class 4 road. Well, according to our training that we had the other night, there isn't much of a difference.
Right.
I think the biggest difference is how they're adopted. An ordinance has a 60-day appeal period.
Right.
I'm not sure that a policy does. I
just wondered if it would carry
I was
more-
kind of surprised to hear him say that there wasn't much of a difference between the two.
Right, 'cause-
I've always understood that there was.
It seems like an ordinance would carry more weight.
I think it does. That has always been kind of how we have interpreted that.
Wouldn't we want to add this to the road standards?
That's not what the other towns did.
Or maybe you add the road standards to
this.
Yeah.
And give it a little more teeth. I can see them being two separate documents,
Yeah.
though, because the use of your Class 4 roads is going to be a little different than your Class 1, 2, 3
Right.
bridges, that kind of stuff.
Are you recommending that the road standards for Class 4 be included in the evaluation of this policy?
Well, you have standards. I mean, we have road standards
But
that
are-
we've signed off on. No, and that's, you just got to compare, because you're still talking about, when you start off either document, they're talking about highways, and they're
Right.
talking about public right-of-ways.
Yeah.
So wouldn't you combine those two so they were easy to reference?
Those standards are mentioned a lot of times in the policy itself. When they talk about reclassification and upgrades or downgrades, however it works. The two big things that I took from the CCC when we did have some conversations were identifying them and the preservation of them. And from there, I mean, there's a lot more to it than just that. And the education of the public regarding their usage or not allowed usage or whatever. But those were some of the bigger things that came out.
And Arnie, you just mentioned identification, and that's the question that's been nagging me for a year, which is we had talked a year ago about step one being pick some roads that are not under controversy, pick some of these Class 4 roads and go tag them. And that was something we were going to talk to the CCC about as well. Has that been discussed? I'm curious if that's still something on a to-do list.
We've walked a few of the more obvious ones. And in fact, one of the other items that I did want to speak to was Wyman's Falls, because that one we have walked and stuff, and we were hoping that we'd be able to.
I'm asking about tagging. Like, are we going to mark?
Well, that's the question with Wyman's Falls. We were looking to see if we could put some identification on it and some signage in the beginning of it to better inform people where it is and what's going on with it, just so because of the use for that one.
Okay, I'm not talking about signage for the convenience of public use. I'm saying, I had thought we intended to go mark or tag or whatever you do.
Define the boundaries.
Define where they are, some of the ones that are not under controversy, so that then when we come back, we could go walk, we can tell people, this Class 4 road over there, go walk it and you'll see the tags. Like, a group of members of the Conservation Commission walking it so you know where it is doesn't help us make it public knowledge where that road is. So I'm just curious, does it make sense for us to encourage that step? I feel like it does, so we know where it is out there in the woods, and then we talk about how it is maintained or not, or marked for public or not.
Yeah, it's like what comes first?
Yeah, I was just
That's
gonna
what I'm
say.
asking.
You know, you identify it and then mark it, or do you mark it first and then let people? I kind of think it's almost a little better to have the policy first before we start inviting the public to use trails and be involved with them and stuff. That gives them a little more heads up on what's happening and things like that.
That's great. Policy first makes all the sense in the world. That's great.
Let's start there.
Yeah, I agree with that, because when people are out there, it's going to be important for them to know where they are legally. I'm on a town road or I'm not on a town road.
And some of them are going to be a lot easier than others.
Right.
Some of them, I imagine some of them are not going to be identified because of the amount of surveying and money involved in trying to find a definition or trying to find a trail that heads through in an area that hasn't been used in a long time. It's not easy. And if you did want to legally identify some of these Class 4 roads, I would think it would involve a lot of survey work and probably some, maybe even eventually court work, depending on the reception of landowners or what's happening and stuff, depending on who's going to claim what and what's going on. Because some of them are pretty intrusive on established houses that are already in place and stuff. This one seems like it goes right by somebody's door.
Right.
It's their parking. There's a lot of issues, as evidenced by what we're going through with some of the other Class 4 roads that we have in town, that it's identify, if we can, define where they are, and then have a policy so we have a basis to start doing more.
Okay.
So one of the things I was, thinking about, and I'll get to you in a second, Mr. Bidgood. I had asked for a map that showed where the Class 4 roads are. So I have this. I marked it up in, the 16 2/3 miles of Class 4 roads in town, and a lot of these I obviously wasn't aware of, but I think it's important that we at least put some bones to the policy together before we start actively looking at particular sections of Class 4 road and how it would apply, or whether we do trail markings or open it to the public or whatever, just so we have an idea of where we're going to go, and then flesh that out as we go along. And I had a couple of comments that I wanted to make for the benefit of the CCC based on my read of this the draft policy from the VLCT. But Mr. Bidgood, did you want to chime in here?
Do you want to use this one?
Yeah, similar to my previous comment on the Chester Snowmobile Club going out into the smoke share area and changing facts on the ground, starting to work on a road, as was stated at the mid-March meeting. Administratively, similar to that, I don't want the Bailey Hill Road to be treated like all the other roads. I think the Bailey Hill Road is the only one in contention at this point, and I didn't see the paperwork, but it said there's a list of identified Class 4 roads. If the Bailey Hill Road is on that list, there should be an asterisk next to it, similar to what you submitted with the certificate of highway mileage, that road is under contention. And I don't want, I think in good faith, we're acting in good faith, that you shouldn't undertake additional steps to paper it as it is a Class 4 road. It's not. That's the dispute that we're having, and the things should stay the way they are, and the board shouldn't take affirmative steps, or the CCC affirmative steps to try to somehow solidify it, that now I have got more things to unwind. We're at a certain point. I think we're making good progress. If I can get the information, somehow I'll probably follow up with Julie and further clarify just what I'm after to make it easier for Peter to respond. But we're really at loggerheads right now, and I want to break that so I can understand it. Then I can respond, because, candidly, what's been submitted so far from Jim Carroll is not sufficient. I'll just leave it at that. So, in closing, though, I did previously state that I'd like a letter sent to the Chester Snowmobile Club telling them not to work on any private property or roads, alleged roads in the Smokeshare area. I think that's incumbent upon the board to do. That keeps everything status quo. And then as far as going forward with your board and the CCCs, somehow separate the Bailey Hill Road from all the other roads so that people know that it's in contention. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Goodfellow?
Frank Kelly has his hand.
Jim Goodfellow. My wife and I live at the top of Blue Hill Road. Blue Hill Road ends at our house, and there is a trail, I think it's a Class 4 road, that continues on up over the hill down to who's the owner of that house?
Ethan Allen. Eventually,
Well,
I think
it goes eventually Ethan Allen, but if you go straight over, it ends up,
Sweat Road.
Sweat Road, you're right, Sweat Road. And Sweat Road on Google Maps is an actual, like, highway. And people stop at our house 4 or 5 times a day wondering, how do I get over to Sweat Road? And Sweat Road is a path, and a bridge that used to be there has been destroyed years ago. So people on the other side of the hill have let the snowmobile club use their own private property to go around that destroyed bridge, and so the Vermont Snowmobile Club can use that road. But I can tell you that we've lived there since 2013, and I've awakened on a Saturday morning to find 5 off-track Jeeps from New Jersey parked on our property, waiting for the 6th one to appear while they're having coffee and sandwiches, and then driving up Sweat Road. Is like, oh my God. And they destroy it. They absolutely destroy the road. And what do you know? The Vermont Snowmobile, the Chester Snowmobile Club is the group that actually repairs their damage. So we love the Chester Snowmobile Club for keeping and preserving that particular Class 4 road. That's very important to know. And what I'm trying to say is that if we see hikers going up that road, that's wonderful. It's a beautiful trail. If we see a couple of guys on bicycles going up that road, that's wonderful too. I had 3 of them come by every year. They're very nice people. They live in Chester, and they ride their bikes all the way down to Ethan Allen Road and around. But vehicles, Jeeps, 4x4s, pickup trucks have not shown up in the last couple of years. I don't know why. Maybe the apps that identify Class 4 roads around the country have lost us somehow, some way. Maybe that's what's happened. But when they were there, they absolutely used our property to stage their trips along the Sweat Road, and they absolutely destroy it. So I would hope that in these papers that you're reading and the recommended kind of scenarios that might exist, that you keep motorized vehicles off of Class 4 roads, because it's not going to be some guy with a pickup truck from Chester. It's going to be an off-road club from New Jersey that's going up these roads and destroying them.
Thank you. Mr. Kelly, did you have a comment to make?
Thank you, Lee, for that. And thank you. I didn't think I would bookend this meeting, but the Chester Conservation Committee, of which I'm a part of, and thank you, Arnie, and others for being part of that and updating that. We do Green Up Day. We do water sampling on the Williams River. We take care of trails and stuff like that. We are apolitical, we are unofficial, and we like it that way. As we're looking at these Class 4 roads, I think it is imperative that the town come up with something so we can, make sure that we're supporting the landowners, as we just heard, because we love having, hikers and bikers going through. That's what we want. But we don't necessarily want other uses going on. That multi-use idea is really, really important. So clarity from the board would be super helpful. We have hiked some of these Class 4 roads. They're beautiful. If you haven't had a chance to get out there and visit some of them, by all means, we would be happy to take you out there. If anyone wants to join the Chester Conservation Committee, we are a committee. We welcome all people, and we just have fun the first Tuesday of each month, 5 p.m. at the Whiting Library. So So yes, we encourage people to be part of it, and thank you to the board for taking on this issue. Your clarity will be important as we go forward.
Excellent. Thank you, Frank.
Frank. And I should segue into, and since you welcome all members, let's remember that multiple select board members are, so when it comes to the CCC working on this policy, it cannot be 3 of you. So just figure out who's going to be working and who's not. So.
Thank you.
You're already
I volunteer not to.
Yeah, I volunteer not to as well. Thank you.
It's okay.
Yeah, my question, I'm here on behalf of the Snowmobile Club a little bit too. And I'm troubled by the statement, he wants you to send us a letter stating we can't work on an area. Because any place we work on, we have a owner's permission and we have a signed permission slip prior to working there. And it doesn't matter whether it's a town road or private property. We don't need Mr. Bigwood dictating what we can work on and what we can't work on in any area that our trails go. And I hope you guys don't go that route, you know. It's, we have permission to do it or we wouldn't be there.
Well, thank you.
I just want to, before we go on, I just wanted to emphasize that in the conversations that I've had with a lot of different people and landowners and stuff, there was always an emphasis on bikers and hikers and stuff. And Snowmobile Club was always welcome because that has special permission from landowners to go anyways, and on our Class 4 roads, they don't go on that many of them. But they always emphasized that they didn't want it open to motorized vehicles. So that's a direction that I think the CCC and I think most of the board members seem like we're in agreement on that when it comes to it. And maybe that's going to have to be specified in the policy because by state statute, a Class 4 road, we can't refuse somebody to drive on it, whereas you're not allowed on a trail, but there is also a stipulation that you can have a pent road, which is basically a gate on it that would prevent motorized vehicles also. But it's just throwing it out there.
Okay.
Well, if you look at Stockbridge, I have a four-wheeler because I have a farm and it just makes it easy to move things around. But they have a pretty extensive club that has four-wheelers and they take great, just like the Snowmobile Club takes great care of their roads, and there's certain town roads that are allowed on and certain town roads are not. Right now, we don't allow an all-terrain vehicle on any town road, yet in my neighborhood, everybody has one. And you'll often see them going up and down the road. So I think we are looking at just one, when you talk about it, it's the Conservation Club, that's just one segment of the population that I think you need to include all the groups when you look at this.
Well, we're open for anybody to come to our meetings and help us with suggestions or work. Or if somebody wanted to start a club regarding that type of issue or use, that's fine also. But I'm just going in the direction that most people that I have spoken to, especially the landowners, because that's the biggest part where you have to get people on board. And that's the direction that I saw that it made sense for us to head, but there are options.
Is this new information or just a rebuttal to? Just one. Okay.
Hi, I think I've demonstrated that I'm here in good faith. And as far as the Snowmobile Club, if you could please provide me with the permission from the landowners on the Bailey Hill Road, the landowners who that road traverses through, I could, I'll reconsider. But until I see that permission, which I don't think is out there, I stand by my previous comments.
Thank you. So I just want to wrap this up. Just a couple of things that I picked up on when I was reading through the VLCT draft policy. And it kind of ties into what we've been talking about for the last few minutes, and that is under number 6, change in classification. Part A, it's a policy of the Select Board to discourage the reclassification and or upgrading of Class 4 highways. I don't necessarily take issue with that, but I think we need to be very careful that we're not boxing ourselves in and prohibiting use for somebody to use a Class 4 road or a portion of Class 4 road as a driveway or access to their property. Just want to make sure that we're not eliminating or reducing opportunities for people. Next would be number 7, highway closure. No Class 4 or other highway of any class may be intentionally closed by a gate or traffic otherwise impeded by other obstruction. This again goes to the, what are we going to recommend for usage, how is this road going to be used? And then the last one, I think, oh, that was, yeah, so those are the 2 that I had. Anyway, I think it's the consensus of the board that the CCC take this on, come back to the board, select board, with a draft policy that we can review in detail, and then we'll go from there. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Yep. Good. Okay, excellent. Thank you. Moving right along, liquor licenses. So we have 3 applications. 2 are from Dollar General. One is for a liquor, second-class liquor license, then the other's for tobacco. And then the third one is for a one-time event but from a, what do you call it?
Caterer.
Caterer, sorry. It's late.
Yep.
And so do we need to vote all these?
Yeah, you can do one motion and approve all 3.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion.
Move to approve 3 liquor licenses, second-class Dollar General, tobacco, Dollar General, and limited event for Jessica Teslov.
Okay, so Ariana's the motion.
I'll second.
Tim is the second. Any discussion?
Just my usual question, is any complaints through the PD or nope?
Nope. Nope.
Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Thank you. So are we signing these now?
You don't sign those, you just do your motion
okay.
now.
Okay. Next is cemetery deeds.
You have 4 of them.
So we have 4 cemetery deeds. We're just signing them, we don't need
You're
to
just
vote, right?
signing them, you don't need a motion.
And you don't get to disapprove of these, I don't think.
What? You what?
You don't get to disapprove of these.
No, you don't. Or you can just not sign.
If you feel strongly, just leave your name off.
Say what?
I want to do the walk.
I'll just sit down here, we'll do the walk, we're almost done.
New business, next agenda. Peter, let me know when you're done scribbling your John Hancock. You good? All right. So Julie, you want to bring us through that?
Sure, sure. Next meeting will be your local emergency management plan. Public safety will be here for that anyway, so the LEMP will get adopted. The phone policy for fire department, there are some things for fire departments that are actually reimbursable, but you need to have a policy. So we'll be presenting that to you. Probably the changes to the traffic ordinance won't come in yet. I'm not sure we're going to have that ready. I am talking to other municipalities about use of town property policies that other towns have used or have adopted that have already been vetted legally, and just taking a look at those first to kind of guide that conversation. So I'm hoping to have something draft that you guys could start looking at. Certainly won't, I don't think will be a one-meeting adoption. So it should be. There's a lot to delve into with that. The other thing is Arnie had requested a couple meetings ago to have Chief Williams here to just talk about the town's fair and impartial policing policy and how we would deal with any form of immigration-related issues. So since Public Safety will be here for the LEMP and other things, Tom will be here to answer any questions on that as well. And then into June, again, these are kind of out there, but the social services discussion Jim is doing, I've asked him to do a little bit of research into the social service articles that we have on town meeting, and is there something that the town can do to kind of consolidate those into one, and what our options are. The board can talk about that. And then Peter had asked for there to begin conversation about local options tax, so that would happen in June. That's on the slate for now.
Sorry, guys, is our next meeting May 21st?
Yes.
Or June 7th?
May 21st, and then June, July, and August, you're the second meeting of each month.
Right. I will not be available May 21st.
Okay.
Not at all, or you just won't be in town?
Not at all.
Okay.
So I had brought up, I'd like to have a discussion about the flags on all town property, really.
Okay.
And just so everybody knows where I'm coming from, I mean, I know you know how I feel about it, but I think a simple solution is just to require, to pass a resolution to require that any flags being flown on town property or over town property comply with the federal flag code. That's all I'm looking for.
Okay. Okay.
Anything else? All right, next is executive session for the purpose of confidential attorney-client communications made for the purpose of providing professional legal services to the body under 1 VSA subsection 313(1)F. We have two motions required. First is a motion to find that premature general public knowledge of confidential attorney-client communications for the purpose of providing professional legal services relative to the drafting and formulation of the purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of a solar field would place the town of Chester at a substantial disadvantage.
So moved.
Ariana?
Second.
Tim is the second. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Next is to make a motion to enter into executive session for the purpose of communicating with town council regarding the purchase and sale agreement for the purchase of a solar field pursuant to 1 VSA subsection 313(1)F. Motion to include inviting in town manager Julie Hantz.
So moved.
Ariana?
Second.
And Tim? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we are now in executive session. Thank you all.